All right, great. We're live. Adam, so great to see you on video again.
Brilliant. Yeah, let's make this work and just let's see what feedback we can get.
And we're excited to welcome Tim Gravert of Finkbine Golf Club. And today's topic, we're really going to be talking about communication and how necessary and important is communication in this environment. Obviously, COVID is changing the game with how communication actually takes a part in our lifestyles. But before we dive in, I'm going to let Adam say a few words, and then we'll pass it off to Tim, and he'll do a little introduction, and we'll go from there. So, Adam, brilliant speaking with you today. What's good over in England?
Well, certainly not the weather. We're having a bit of rain in the last few days. Maybe much needed though. But thanks again for having us on this channel, Jason. Hopefully we're getting a little bit better at it each week that we do one. And so I'm Adam Sedgwick. I represent global sales at Soilscape, the Finnish underground soil sensor company. So and together with Jason, we came up with this idea. We'll have discussions across the pond and weekly have some discussions on relevant topics in the industry. And I think today's topic on communication, with the way the world's been these last 6 months with the pandemic, things like communication is one of the key points that's come to the front of everyone's minds, because we've all had to look at different ways to communicate and different ways to adapt. And it's great to have Tim Gravert on here with us as well today. So back to you, Jay, and let's enjoy this chat. We hope everyone else does.
Well, it's obviously not blowing out of the waters yet, but when folks realized and knew we were going to be welcoming Tim Gravert, they were very, very, very antsy to hear what he has to add. So, Tim, talk to us a little bit about your transition. I know you made a recent transition from Short Hills over to Finkbine.
Yeah, I've been here 5 months and 5 months and 5 days now. So I always say it's interesting transitioning to a new job, no matter what. But transitioning to a new job in 2020 is a whole different beast. So we're getting anything and everything thrown at us, and it should be easy once this year's over. The thinking anyway.
For sure.
So I know that's not going to happen, but with everything going on, like you said when you got a hold of me and said, communication, I think that's the most important thing that we do in order to run a successful operation. So I think it's a great topic and one of the most important topics there is.
So, one of the main reasons I was so excited to bring you on, Tim, is I know that you had a stint at Bethpage during the Open, and how much of transferred the communication at Bethpage, did it transfer with you over to other stops on your career track, and then while you're obviously now working at Finkbine, how much of it compares, and then how much of it is completely different?
I think it's really been completely different almost every step of the way. Out at Bethpage, obviously having 5 courses and being a state-run municipality, there was definitely a lot of communication that we had there just with being such a big operation. But really the communication that I had there was really within, the different managers of the courses, the different course superintendents, obviously the director of agronomy and the park superintendent. So I didn't really have much communication with anybody outside of Bethpage. And it was never really much, asking to be able to do things. It was more just communicating what we were doing amongst each other, amongst the 5 courses, to make sure that all the courses were getting everything taken care of that they needed. When I first got out there, I was just, an assistant on all 5 courses. And one of the key things that I did was, we'd have a course closed for a partial day once or so, about once every month, and we'd just go out and bomb the entire place with sprayers. So, I'd take 3 or 4 interns with me and communicate with the course superintendent and go spray the place. So, but then transitioning once I, obviously you had different layers there once the USGA came in and going through the whole course renovation before the open and everything. Communicating with Greg Muirhead, and then once the USGA came in, Dave Otis and those guys, definitely communicated with them. But then going to a private club after that, it was a whole different beast where, however many members you have, that's how many bosses that you have, and everybody thinks that they're a turf expert, and so you gotta communicate everything with them, to try and make everybody understand why you're doing the things that you're doing. So I know that was one of the biggest things. Everybody was thrilled with the changes that I made to the playing conditions and playing. The conditions and playability at Short Hills. But a lot of people said that the biggest thing, one of the best things that I brought there was the communication that I brought. I would regularly send out emails to the entire membership just explaining why we're doing what we're doing. And everybody just loved that and fed off it. And, it was able to squash a lot of the questions and, people getting done with their rounds and explaining to each other, what was going on in the course when they didn't really have a clue. Instead, they had those emails from me, and then they could talk about those emails instead of making up their own facts. So, and then now being at a university course with management company involved, I have multiple layers to that cake. Where I report to a regional director for Green Golf, who's great, and they pretty much leave me alone, and the only communications I really have with them is when I need something. So they're great with that, but Green Golf is a subsidiary of Troon now, so I have Troon people that I'm communicating with, and then I also have university representatives that I'm dealing with, and then we share a shop and equipment with the athletic grounds crew at the university. So we got to make sure that we're communicating. Hey, these are the days that I'll need to spray this week, or I'd really like to get this mower this week, and stuff like that. So, in order to make everything run smooth, communication is key, and can squash a lot of problems before they even happen if you do it right.
So, obviously, that's pretty parallel. I mean, as one would expect, communications are pretty parallel, but it's almost as though Bethpage seemed as though it was similar to what you're doing now, and the only but the only major animal, the disruption was the private club sector, where, so I guess if we could camp out there for a minute, when you're at a private club, and the coined phrase in the industry is champagne taste on a Budweiser budget, how often did you feel like at the private club sector that hey, these people really expect way more than we can afford, or how did you ultimately communicate, like, hey folks, look, I want that same thing just like you do, but we can't quite get there yet, or we're probably not going to get there, in not because Tim doesn't want to, but because the club just can't. How do you communicate that effort?
The biggest thing is putting a number on things, and putting it out there for those members to see, and let them go ahead and make those decisions. Because when you put the numbers on it, you know what decisions they have to make, and they can't just look at something and expect another thing when they know what the financials are. So I've always said, the biggest thing with me, no one has bigger expectations for the product that they put out than myself. So they're wise enough, but when you give them that information and communicate those type of things with them, they understand that. And if they don't, then it's probably not the type of place that you want to be at.
Well, and so we hit on a few areas there, and not that we're picking on the private club by any means, but if you have data, right? So we'll rewind and we'll go back to 2008. I went to a seminar and it was called Data Equals Knowledge Equals Power, and in this seminar highlighted the necessity to have data, and that's why I'll even throw it out there, so lovingly decided to join forces with Adam Sedgwick and the Soil Scout team, because they're data freaks, and superintendents, I think I haven't been one for quite a number of years now, but I think superintendents are trend junkies. They're all about trends. If we're following a good trend, and we're looking at this trend, and maybe we don't want to follow it if it's a bad trend, but if we're following this trend, then chances are we're going to be in a good realm. If for whatever reason the trend seems to drop off, then you need to make adjustments. So yes, you're basically you're a steward of your resources, you're a steward of your environment. You're being tasked with this large undertaking of 150, 200, 300, sometimes it's 600 acres of property to manage, and not only are you expected to communicate, well, why are we dry on 6 and we're wet on 9, but you're expected to also communicate why the first green didn't get cut until 6:10, and the cups weren't cut or changed the previous day, and you're expected to communicate why you have, anthracnose flaring up in the middle of the fairways, and you're expected to be able to communicate all of these things. And I'm really, thank you for calling out Turf Cloud and putting that on the spotlight. And using.
Also, you have heard of it?
I did, yeah. I happened to. There was this tremendous youngster back in the day that decided to have this revolutionary dashboard that was similar to iGoogle, and wanted to be able to facilitate all of these data sets, and more so that we're trying to improve the quality of your life. The superintendent, we're trying to improve the quality of your life in the sense of communication. And
I think we're just trying to. I think the messages we're all trying to get across is giving everyone a reason to have auditable actions. Especially the private clubs that are heavily committee driven. By having data sets either from a management dashboard like the Turf Cloud, from your soil sensors like the Soil Scout solution, or even drone imagery, having all of those data sets gives you a valuable tool to approach budgeting directors or committees, and without alienating anyone, because we're live right now, but we all know that every committee is just a group of agronomists. So they all know what they want. They know what they're trying to achieve, But do they? They're just trying to sort of use their message to overpower. So if you communicate the right message to them via having the right data from auditable actions, it just makes everyone's life that little bit easier. And it's sort of, while we're on this subject of communication, when we're trying to pass these messages over, we all have to remember the five keys to effective communication, and we're all guilty of not using anyone. And it's as simple as being positive, and positivity is gained by having all of these data sets to have a positive feeling in yourself that you're putting out the right action, and also eliminating negativity coming back from decision makers. And to communicate effectively as well, you need to be a good listener. So, and any reactions coming back, you need to be a better listener, really, than you are a talker, and then also be an echo. So, echo yourself, echo your own feelings, and then with the echo, be a mirror to what the guys are saying back to you. But more importantly than anything, is just be real, and then communication becomes easy just by following those 5 steps.
Yeah, I want to second that. Most often, I don't know. I'll second it with another statement that 80% or even 90% of what people remember out of the conversation is what they say, and not what you actually say. So you could talk to a person for a half hour, and if they did most of the talking, they're going to say, hey, that was a great talk. I had a great talk with them, because they remember that they were talking most of the time. And so how do you effectively come across and communicate where you're asking questions, you're trying to drive home your point, you're trying to communicate, like, this is what we need to do on the property today, or this is what you should be purchasing from us, or this is what you need to do as a staff member, through asking questions, so they're doing most of the talking and you're not. And then they remember, hey, I was actually the one talking and presenting and discussing what we needed to do. And so if we're diving into TurfCloud, if we're diving into any other digital platform that's available in this industry, if we're diving into Soil Scout and the data that the Hydro Scouts are able to pull and provide, and syncing that with irrigation systems, if we're able to populate our own glorious spreadsheets from Excel or Google Drive, using that data, data doesn't lie. It's not going to go anywhere. You do have to populate it, but it doesn't go anywhere. So I think what's really key is that we started at a top of the top, U.S. Open, high-end caliber, one of the best in the country, and then we sidestepped over to a private club, and then we took another sidestep over to a management company, and now, Tim, you're there for 5 months and 5 days, and you just succumbed to a microburst. How do you climb out of? How do you?
Inland hurricane, actually.
It was a hurricane. What was the name? What was the name of the hurricane?
Derecho. Well, it's called a derecho. Anyway, okay. Which is straight line winds. So, for all of you non-Spanish speaking people out there.
Yeah, well, I'm not. So, but how do you climb out of that and communicate to not to the staff, because the staff's the one doing the hard work. How do you climb out of that and say, okay, membership, this is what we're presented with, and these are the expectations. I mean, you're experienced, so you can do this in your sleep essentially. But how do you go about that?
Like I was saying earlier, I mean, I've been involved in 3 storms like this now, and this isn't in the top 2 for the amount of damage we had. So we got lucky, half an hour north of here, up in Cedar Rapids, they got absolutely annihilated. Feel bad for those guys, but what we dealt with really, yeah, it's bad, but it's not horrible either. But before the weird thing about this storm, and something that I never seen before was the amount of time that the wind blew. It went from being completely calm to blowing 100 miles an hour at the snap of a finger. And I actually was caught out on the course and have never been more scared on a golf course in my life. But that's a whole other story. But the thing was, we're all hunkered down in the shop areas up here. And, it just kept on blowing and blowing and just did not stop. And it blew for a good 45 minutes like that. And before it was even done blowing, I would say halfway through that, I knew that we had a mess out on the course, because as I'm driving in the tractor with the bike on the back of it, I'm driving down the middle of fairways because I'm watching trees snap in half and break in half in the rough. So, I knew we had a mess out there, and then it just kept on blowing and blowing. So I knew it was going to be bad. And halfway into it, I called my, my supervisor from the university and said, hey, we're going to have a big mess out here, and we need to get a plan in place as to what we're going to do. I need to figure out what the university's policy is on bringing in a tree company, because as soon as this wind stops, all the tree companies are going to be booked for the next 4 months, or however long it takes to get cleaned up in this. And, started the process even before the storm was over. So, like I said, being through it 2 other times, it happened at 1:30. So it happened in the middle of the day, and I didn't keep the crew and start cleanup right away. I sent them all home once it got over with. Communicated with them, hey, go home, rest up, get a good night's sleep, because we're going to be working our tails off for the next week or 2 or however long it takes us. So, we got those wheels rolling before the storm was even over.
So, how do you now? You're 2 weeks removed from the storm?
No, a week.
You're a week removed from the storm.
Yep, happened last Monday.
And I have to imagine that your temperatures really haven't gone down. They haven't moved much. They haven't skirted much. And so where do you go from there?
Now, that was the first thing I said to the guys the next morning when we had our, little team meeting. Is that, hey, we've got a mess to clean up. It's August, and we have a golf course we have to keep alive.
Right.
Because there's no point in getting all the trees cleaned up in order for people to come out and play on dead greens, because we haven't taken care of the greens at all.
Right.
So, unfortunately, my assistant was on a 2-week quarantine, so I didn't even have him at my use. But I had my other guy we prep greens in the morning and everything, and I said to him, I'm going to need you to really step up, and I'm still going to be here, obviously, if you need me, to make sure that the greens and everything are okay. But, I really need you to step up and make sure that, I can put this on your plate, and it's something that I don't have to worry about, so that I can coordinate everything out here so that we can get golfers back out here. Because if there's no golfers out here, we're not making money. So, it was I kind of just communicating with everybody. I had already communicated with my key members of the staff, but hey, I need you to step up because I've got my key guy down. And then the storm happens, and it's like, okay, how I told you I needed you to step up. Not only did I go to the key members of the team, but I went to everybody and, kind of said, hey, this is what we're going to have going on. I need everybody to step up. I need everybody to make sure that they're here when they're supposed to be here, and expect some long days. Expect overtime, because normally I don't give overtime. We make sure that everybody stays under 40 hours, and we're not going to work 70 hours a week because we're not trying to kill guys.
Well, in
the same sense,
if you let me camp out there for a second, so you're basically the control tower. Like Tim Gravert's the control tower. Tim Gravert's expected to communicate both to his staff, also to membership, and now you're in the sense of if Tim could work 90 hours a week, and Tim could get his staff to rally around and work 90 hours a week, then he would. But the expectation from membership is to not exceed that 40-hour work week, but yet they still want the course to be dynamite and where it should be or could be on August 18th. So besides email, I mean, how much interaction are you playing up in the clubhouse realm? Like, are you on the first tee? Are you communicating with people before they're teeing off? Are you in the pro shop? Are you front face and center? Or are you simply adding to a blog? Are you on social media? Like, what are your channels to get that? I mean, obviously, you being you, it's not scalable. You can't obviously clone yourself or duplicate yourself. So, and Adam and I know for a fact that we would love to clone ourselves. If I tried to clone myself as Adam, it'd be really, really difficult because I'm a lot smaller than him. But I try like heck to beat him in rowing, visually, virtually anyway. But how do you clone yourself? Like, how do you scale yourself?
First of all, nobody would want another me. So one is more than enough for most people to try and handle. But that's something different here too. When I was at Short Hills, I had emails that I could send out to the membership as much as I wanted, as much communication as I thought I needed to have. To where here, that's different because we're a public course.
Yeah.
So there is no email group to the entire golfing community. So you kind of are focusing on social media and that in order to communicate that. I'm always kind of shocked at how many people, say they follow my Twitter and how much they get from it. To kind of laugh at it because, I definitely use that as a tool. But some people love my Twitter and some people hate it. Where, now, Twitter is one of my main avenues of communication. If I need to communicate something on our Facebook page, I give that to the pro shop guys. But I don't really get too detailed in that. It's just, a couple, when the storm happened, I sent them a couple pictures of the damage that we had, and it was, hey, the course is going to be closed until further notice. And, that's the only communication that I had with the public unless they follow me on Twitter.
I think on the back of the coronavirus pandemic, we've all had to learn to really streamline our communication tactics. So we've touched on communication with committees, communication with directors, and now we're on social media communication with members, and I think everyone's social media channels have been crazy over the last 6 months. One thing we really need to remember though is also communication with our staff, our colleagues, our friends, and I know it's a subject we're going to bring up in the future, which is mental health. So good communication right now, especially where we're being socially distanced. We're not in the sort of hugging environment that we have been previously, and the handshake. So communication is going to be vital there as well. Our teams are all distanced. A lot of courses, a lot of places are working split shifts, so people aren't seeing each other like they were. So we've got to utilise every way we can. It's sort of from a commercial world, we've heavily used web-based meetings, sort of Zoom or Hangouts or whatever. But it's sort of, from your point, Tim, it's sort of where you're all quite remote anyway, and the job always has been. And have you seen many changes there where you've had to communicate messages to your staff differently?
Yeah, well, me and Jason talked about this before. Normally, like I said, I'm a Turf Cloud user, so I have my electronic job board, my TV in our break room, but I don't allow our staff in our break room anymore. So that's, we socially distance, and I don't want everybody touching the same door, coming in and out, and everybody in a confined place, and all this and that. So, and Jason laughed at me and said, it was like their biggest way to. I forget, Jason. Come in.
I'm on the deck, and the landscape company shows up. I'm at my in-laws doing the video here, and so obviously I had to come inside. So my apologies for the interruption. But what Tim was saying is we were chatting, and Tim said, the last thing I do at night before I go to bed is I pull up Turf Cloud, and if we just come full circle with this, and we'll digress from here. I think it's an important, to be valuable of your time and everyone else's time that's tuning in here. I think if we're being honest, communication isn't necessarily just the superintendent communicating to staff or the superintendent communicating to membership. But it's really important that the superintendent, is communicating with himself or herself. And what are your physical expectations for that coming day or that coming meeting or that whatever event that you have going on in your life? If you're communicating with yourself, you're using the data to fulfill your brain with what is most important to me right now. What you love shows is a pretty common saying, and if what you love shows through your actions, then yeah, using Turf Cloud is a key arena that you could do so. Using Soil Scout is a key arena that you could grab data and statistics for your living environment for your turf. But communicating with yourself, I think, is number one. Adam, do you have anything to add to about communicating with yourself?
Well, we now know what Tim's communication to himself is, because he's if the break room's shut to all the rest of the staff, he's the only one with access to the coffee and biscuits. but no, it's sort of communication to yourself's key. It's sort of every day, either at the end of a day or at the start of a new day. The first thing I'll do, or the last thing I'll do, is make a plan for that day, so that I'll get sort of my communication strategy into my head, and I try and build a day so it flows. So where we're doing these virtual meetings, it's nice to have some natural flow one to the other, and it's the same with you, Tim, with you obviously try and pull one job will flow to another, so it's not backwards and forwards to the shop for different things all the time, and your guys. So that's all I do. I just try and communicate my methods of getting a natural flow, so that you can stay on top of your game and keep the enthusiasm levels high.
So Tim, that's tremendous, Adam. Tim, how do you from here on out, like, looking at Turf Cloud before you go to sleep at the end of the day? I mean, maybe that's real, maybe that's not. Maybe you're just being fun. But
it's 100% real.
Love it.
I don't know how lame that is, but I guess, I mean, if that's lame, I'm 100% lame, because that is 100% real. That is the last thing I do. I'm laying in bed, and it's most people use that as time to go to sleep, but unfortunately that's not quite the way my brain works. I get so jealous of my fiance when she lays down and is sleeping as her head hits the pillow. But I'm not that way. I lay there in bed and it's like, all right, let's make I've already got the plan for the next day in my head, but let's put that onto the job board and get that to where I'll be able to communicate that to the guys for the next day.
Yeah.
It's probably not as lame as a guy in the UK who at 9 p.m. in an evening is still on YouTube Live talking to turfies in the USA.
Well, that's one way you could go about your evening, and broadcasting out to the turf public. I really just want to thank both of you. This, if you tuned in or you're tuning in now after the fact, this is our first ever going live on YouTube. So there's definitely going to be some setbacks or some mishaps inside the video itself. So my apologies up front, and or after the fact, not up front. And I also want to just comment that tuning in to more videos, more YouTube live sessions will be a little bit more polished, and we'll be in better shape. But Tim, any closing thoughts for Turf?
I just want to jump back to something that got brought up a little bit ago, but kind of just got skimmed over, and I think it's probably the most important communication that we do.
Yep.
Is amongst other superintendents. Where you said it, it kind of leads to mental health. But nobody knows what we deal with really, other than other superintendents, other assistants, other people in this industry that have done this from one time or another. So I think the communication amongst each other, reaching out to other people and just saying, hey, how you doing? I've been, throughout this year, just with everything going on, it's been a difficult year. And I love it, absolutely love it when people just reach out to me, just say, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while. How you doing? And we're able to just vent to each other, and I had said this a while back. I had within a 2-week stretch there. It's the end of July, beginning of August. We're just in the middle of those, 100 days of hell, or whatever you want to call it, whatever term you have for it. And I got 3 other superintendents. All call me and they're like, hey, I don't want to complain to you, but, I just really want to talk about this. And my thing to them was, if we can't communicate with each other, who can we communicate with? Feel free, anybody else listening to this, that needs to call and vent about anything, give me a call. Because if we can't communicate with each other, who can we communicate with? And, that might lead to another episode that you guys talk about with the mental health. because, just communicating stuff can help, yourself and other people out so much. So, I think that's another layer of communication that I don't want to, leave untouched, per se.
That's a really good quote to end on, really, there, Tim. Where we're all here, we're all broadcasting now. We love what we do, but there's those out there that probably are going through times where they're feeling a little bit isolated, don't know, just want someone to talk to, and that's what we're all here for as well. We've all got phones. Everyone can find our methods of communication. Just reach out and talk to us about what we do, and if it's just something to take your mind off things, just do it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with both of your comments, and you can obviously comment right here in the chat in the YouTube channel, or send us an email, or send us a text message, or call us. It's very obvious that we have no problem being on camera, let alone being on YouTube Live. And if we did, we probably wouldn't be doing it. But it's necessary, and in my opinion, healthy to not just reach out to others, but to be a second ear to listen to. So, Tim, thank you so much. We're gonna have you on again.
Thanks for having me.
We're gonna have you on again to talk about other topics. Maybe even do a tandem with other superintendents, and we will talk to you guys very soon. So.
Sounds good. Appreciate it, guys.
All right. Thank you very much.
Have a good rest of your day and have a good night.
You too.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.